I'm going to take you through how to torte a cake, and what that actually means is how to actually cut the cake, level it, how to fill the cake with your favorite frosting, and then how to crumb coat it and get it ready for the next process. So going through some of the tools, the first thing I have down is a silicone mat. The reason I have this one here is just handy to contain the mess that we're about to create. Because I don't know about you, but I'm like bedlam when I'm working. I have a ruler. The reason being it's very handy to have this with you for the measurements, just to make sure that you've got your layers nice and even, and it'll keep the torting of the cake correct. I have a small offset spatula. This is really handy for putting in frostings or jam within your cakes. And then we have the larger spatula. This is great for mixing in your colors and also for torting your larger cake. And this is one of my favorite tools. This is a tall scraper. It's very trendy at the moment to have the taller cakes. So if we're talking about double barrel or single barrel cakes, the beauty of this one is it also has the measurements on the side for those who are using the centimeters and the inches. They're great for scraping your cakes around and getting that smooth finish, especially on your buttercreams. And then we have a weapon of choice that I quite often cut myself on. This is a really great sharp knife. You can see I'm very delicately holding the tips of it. The reason being I quite often cut myself. The reason we use this one is for slicing through the layers of the cake. The beauty of having something of this length is because quite often we are doing larger cakes these days. We're also going to need a small cake board. Today on this particular video we're going to be using a 7-inch. And these are compressed cardboard, they're food grade, and they're very good for keeping your cake level and even when we're doing our torting. And then what are we going to torte with? We're going to torte with the buttercream today. So this is the over-the-top white buttercream. It's fantastic. It comes already ready to go from the pack, so you don't actually have to whip it up. And you can change the color, you can change the flavor, but it's got a really nice marshmallow flavor as well. Shelf-stable, gluten-free. There's lots of wonderful things about this particular buttercream, but this is the one we're going to be using to torte the cake today. Then another firm favorite of mine in the kitchen is this professional turntable. This is food-grade steel, but the beauty of this one is that it's nice and strong and it doesn't wobble when you're actually using it. So it has a beautiful turning on it. It has a great little rubber mat, so it doesn't matter what surface you're actually working on. This won't actually move, and you can remove this to actually wash it as well. Now, the top of it is actually graded as well, so that means that when you're working with it, it's less likely for the cake to slide off it. And as you can see, it has a beautiful turn on it. So it's great for when you're trying to smooth the side of your cake with buttercream. So here we have 2 7-inch cakes that were already pre-baked for us, and they've cooled down. We've popped them in the fridge so they're cool and ready to go. Also, so they're nice and firm, so it's easy to work with. And these were baked in the Mondo cake tins. These are made of alloy. They're very easy to clean, very easy to get your cakes out of. And the beauty of them is that they have these straight sides, so you're likely to get these beautiful ready to go cakes, so you don't have to sit there and carve off your cake or change any of the shape. You're good to go. The reason why we also have wrapped it is to stop the cake from drying out when we've got it in the fridge, because there's nothing worse than dry cake. Please remember to take the baking paper off. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it happen. Center that cake in the middle of your turntable, so you can see the lines here will tell you exactly that you've centered it. Now we're going to actually level off the cake, and we're going to work out the heights for it. So we've got our trusty little ruler here ready to go, and having a look at the height, this is approximately 7 centimeters tall. So when we talk about torting our cakes, and probably a bit of an industry standard is looking for each layer to be approximately 1 inch high. The reason being is that we're adding in a bit of frosting in between each of the layers. So when you're eating the cake, or the eatability of the cake as we like to say, it's a little bit nicer if you have a bit of cake and a bit of frosting, and not a huge amount of cake and only a little bit of frosting. We would like each of the layers to be 1 inch high, and I happen to know that this ruler is 1 inch high. It will make my life so much easier. And when I draw it against the cake just like so, I can see I'm going to get at least 2 layers out of this particular cake. So there are a lot of tools on the market when it comes to actually cutting the cake, and you may not have any of those tools at home. So I'm going to take you through today how to actually do it at home with the tools that you have currently. So remember, we had our little trusty ruler here, and I'm going to use that as my guide because it is at 1 inch high. So bringing in your knife here and using it as your guide It's very important that you are keeping it level, and I'm just scoring the cake slightly. I'm barely going in. So we want to give ourselves a guide to work off later on, and that rule is really going to help you keep that knife nice and straight. So now as you can see, we're working around, we're going in a little bit further into the cake. And actually see that knife going in a little bit further now as we start to work our way around, and we're always keeping that ruler even. So now we're probably working into the cake around about 1 inch high. All right, so we've just finished scoring all the way around. Now we can remove our ruler and put that aside. And you can see with the cake, we actually have a line all the way around. This is going to be our guide. So I'm going to come in this way just because it's more convenient for me for cutting. My hand's going to come down and hold onto the cake. I don't want to push down because I don't want to compress the actual cake crumb in there. Pop that knife in and start using that guide that you've created. And you can see the knife slowly going in, bit by bit, going into the cake a little further each time, using that guide that you've created. And you can see we're getting further and further into the cake until you feel confident enough and you are watching each side of your knife. And this is where it's handy to have the longer knife coming all the way through. And if you're turning the turntable at the same time, now watch your hand on this side because this is a sharp knife. You see that is all the way through. Big reveal, fingers crossed. We should have a nice even first layer. Now you know how to actually do each layer of the cake. So I'm going to go ahead and do this to the rest. So I need to do it to that top layer of it, plus the other one that I've got here on one side. As you can see, I've done a huge cleanup now. That's the reason why I had the mat down before. So what I've got here ready to go, we've got the cake all leveled. We have the turntable. On top, I've popped that 7-inch cake board ready to go. And we have the over-the-top buttercream, plus our little cake tools. So I've got a large offset spatula. I have the tall scraper and the small offset spatula. I've also picked up a little bowl because it's gonna help me not get crumbs back into the buttercream. Here we have the over-the-top buttercream. Now the beauty of this is it's ready to go. You don't have to mix it up. You don't need to pull out any additional equipment. You can use it straight from the tub. Even if you just get your little spatula and give it a little bit of a turn inside the tub, it's ready to go. Now, because we're going to be torting our cake, what I'd like to do is actually take out some of the buttercream into another bowl. The reason being is because we're going to be double dipping, so to speak. And if there's any crumbs coming off the cake, I don't want to contaminate the container for anything that's left over because you can always store this back in the fridge for months on end. So let's just look at this. It's like marshmallow. How amazing is this? Almost like finger licking good, isn't it? And you can see, look at the consistency. And I have to tell you, I know you're at home and you're probably not smelling this, but it smells amazing. That's probably enough. Well, one more scoop just for posterity. And now we're finally ready to actually tort the cake itself. So I've got the cake board here ready to go onto the turntable, and underneath I have put a little non-slip mat just to make my life a little bit easier. And grabbing some of this beautiful fluffy white cloud with your offset spatula, and you can choose to use either the smaller one or the larger one. Schmooze a little bit onto the board. Okay, so just finish it off nice and smooth, just like that. Pop that in and grab your first layer of the cake. Center it onto the board. You can see as I turn, it's positioned quite well. And give it a little bit of a press down. I'm not talking a full push again because you don't want to crush the crumbs of the cake, and that's secure into place. So now what we're going to do is buttercream this tier up. Now you got to be careful that you're not going to drag the crumbs through, so you can see already the crumbs are coming through. And because we're double dipping, this is the reason that we put the buttercream into the spare bowl. The beauty is with this buttercream, you can color it any way you like, and you can add in any flavor you like. So you can even put in some beautiful freeze-dried fruit or some of your favorite flavorings. And you can see I've kept that as even as possible and as level as possible. Give it a little turn with the turntable, and I'm happy with that. And now we're ready for that next layer to pop on top. Try and place it as evenly as possible. A little press down again, not pushing it down. And we're ready to do the same that we did on the last one. We just repeat the process until we get to the top. Right, so now that we've torted up the cake, we're ready to clean it up a little bit. What I have here is that favorite little tool that I mentioned to you before. This is the tall metal scraper. Now, what I'd like to do is actually butt that end of it up against the cake and drag it around. And I'm going to use the turntable to actually do the work for me. Now, a handy little tip for you is if you place your little elbow here into your hip, you'll keep your arm even and level for the whole process. So if I'm going to work this way so you can actually see, I'm going to lean forward a little bit. I'm going to place that scraper against the cake and then I'm going to turn the turntable just to clean off all those little bits and pieces of buttercream that are left. All right, so at this point in time, we're gonna pop the cake into the fridge for about 5 to 10 minutes just to firm it up a little bit and also to stop some of the crumbs coming out of it. And then we're gonna put a full coat of buttercream on. So this one's going into the fridge. And there we have the cake, cooled down and ready to go. And now it's time to add a bit more buttercream. Yay! What I'm doing now is I'm just adding a nice little thick layer of buttercream to the outside of the cake, and because it's firm and the crumbs mostly are going to stay into place. And the reason being is that we're going to scrape all of this off in a minute. So I'm just trying to make sure that I've got it on evenly. And I'm using the spatula up and down. Now the reason I haven't put any on the top at the moment is in case I want to put my hand on it. Even all the way around. And I'm going to grab that tall scraper again and go all the way around. So we remember with our tall scraper, we're going to butt that in and we're going to turn it around. The first time round, because it is a little bit bumpy, I'm going to be a little bit gentle with holding onto it. But the second time round, I'm going to be a little bit more rough with it and keep it firmly into place. As you can see, it's getting a little bit smoother now. We'll keep on going around and you can see there's probably some sections in there that I need to fill in. So we're just adding a little bit more buttercream in now just to fill in the gaps, and you'll have some buttercream left off your scraper, so always try and clean that off a bit. This is like a repeat process until you're actually happy with the way it looks. Don't forget, you don't want to aim for perfection, you're just looking for a smooth surface to work off. Always make sure that you're cleaning down the scraper as often as possible. It's going to help with avoiding buttercream drag. With the leftover of the buttercream, I'm going to pop some of that on top of the cake. And using that favorite little comment that I made before, which is just schmoozing your buttercream on there. Just enough to cover the cake. I'm not too worried, you probably saw on the sides, there might be a little bit of semi-naked cake hanging out, and that is a-okay. Matter of fact, I think I've just taught you how to make a semi-naked or a semi-scraped cake. Now it's really important that you do check your levels. I'm going to scrape this one off and then I'm going to show you. Make sure that it is even on the top and level. I'm just going to do those sides a little bit, making sure that there's no little air pockets or bits exposed. So now I'm going to scrape around again just to make sure it's tidy, and then I'm going to take off the top. Nice little scrape. Fair bit of buttercream coming off. Just one little scrape around just to make sure it's nice and even. And then we're going to tend to the top. What I'm looking for is I just want to grab the edge and pull it in. And if I keep this on an even angle, it's probably maybe a 45-degree angle, I know I'm going to do it very, very cleanly. And in between every single scrape, I'm going to clean off the blade and I'm going to start again. Pulling it in, cleaning it off, and repeat until you're happy. And don't go too bonkers, because don't forget you're going to cover this later on. But that's already nice and neat and tidy as is. Now if I were not to clean that off, I would drag the buttercream across and I'd probably make the surface uneven. Alright, so we've just finished torting the cake. Now it's probably time to get it into the fridge for 10 or 15 minutes just so it can firm up before we cover it off with fondant. So off she goes. So you've torted your first cake. I have full faith that you're able to do this at home. It is so, so easy. Just remember to check your levels, keep it even, have faith in yourself, and just remember there's no such thing as perfect, so don't seek to do perfection when you're doing your cakes. It's all about a bit of fun, and baking and caking really is therapy because it comes from the heart. Enjoy.